Hello, welcome to another video. My name is Jessie and I am an animal artist. Thank you for being here with me today. I'm just going to share some tips and tricks when drawing and painting this pink robin. So I'm going to share with you my 3-step method for drawing, and what I do is identify some basic geometric shapes. So in the pink robin there's quite a lot of circles, it's quite a round bird. So for the head I drew a circle, for the main body I drew a circle, and then I interlocked those circles with some curved lines that made up the back of the wing. And then I start to draw the legs as well. Once you have identified these geometric shapes and you've joined them together, you can adjust the shapes to their relative sizes. So the circles that you draw, for example, aren't going to be perfect. As you can see right now, I'm flattening the top of the head because it's not quite round at the top, it's a little bit flat. And I'm also extending the body out a bit more to make the robin look a bit more round. Just in this picture, the robin looked really round, which was wonderful, but it's quite a fat looking robin, but great fun to paint. So once you've identified those basic geometric shapes, you've interlocked them and you adjust the shapes to the relative sizes, you can begin to add in the little details. So I do like to add in details. It makes me feel more confident when I get onto the painting element of it. So as you can see around the face, I've actually outlined its cheek and I've drawn in the eye, and also the feet. I'm adding tiny details on that as well. Just some little feathers here and there that I think would be important to highlight in the painting. So yeah, that's is that more of a 4-step method, I suppose. So you've got you've got your identify your geometric shapes, um, interlock the shapes together, adjust the relative sizes, and add details. So I'm going to say this is my 4-step drawing method. So give that a go. So when I saw this bird, I didn't actually realize it was real. I thought it was photoshopped. And funny enough, so strange. I was watching this video, can't remember the name of the channel, but it was like, is it real or fake? The images. So they showed him a bunch of photos, and they have to guess if it's real or fake. And the first picture they showed was actually a pink robin, and they all thought it was fake. And I was there at the background going, "It's real, it's real!" And yeah, they're real. It's pretty cool. Now for the belly, I used a wax crayon. They are water-soluble wax pastels, sorry, and they're great to work with watercolour. Now I decided to use this wax pastel because the colours in the set I have are quite vibrant, and I just felt like I didn't have a pink that was vibrant enough to use for the belly, because these guys have really pink bellies. So I decided to use a wax pastel, and it was fantastic. It's really vibrant, really pink. But believe it or not, the it's actually called purple. In the set I have, that color is called purple. Um, but the other color, the one actually is like purple, is called violet. I don't know. So I used purple, which is like pink, and a violet, which is like purple, to create the tone in the belly. And you can also see at the bottom I actually use another pink from my watercolor set too. That pink is alizarin crimson, so I use a little bit of alizarin crimson just at the bottom of the belly to create some tone, because I want to make the belly look 3D, because obviously the paper is flat, the bird is flat, it's 2D, it's not three-dimensional, but we can play around with tone to create something that looks three-dimensional. So I'm using a little bit of alizarin crimson in combination with a tad of ultramarine blue just to darken it a little, and I'm trying to create a tonal variation across the belly. So I'm trying to make the bottom of the belly a little bit darker and the middle a bit brighter, and I'm also adding in some details with a finer brush, which I think looks quite nice as well. You could, if you had a watercolor that's vibrant, like the purple violet crayon I'm using now, you could just use that. But it was an opportunity for me to use a different water soluble medium. So it was good fun, and the colours are just brilliant. Now for the rest of the bird, it's quite dark, so there really is a contrast between the belly and the rest of the bird. It's such a beautiful bird. I can't believe they're real. But for the rest of the bird, I actually create my own shade of blue. So I use ultramarine, and I use a little bit of burnt sienna to make it darker, almost a grey, but I do use a little bit more ultramarine just to give it that blue tint. And I approach the rest of the bird with a wet on dry look initially, and and then I use a bit of wet on wet right there. So I'm using a watered down version of that shade of blue I've made, and I just applied that colour to the bird, and then I'm going back into the painting with a more concentrated load on my brush into the more darker areas, and I'm also using just pure ultramarine and adding some more blue hints to the painting. And what you'll see me doing a lot is softening the edges. So for example, between the blue part of the bird and the pink part, I do soften the edges and kind of blend them together because I really dislike harsh, sharp lines. I think it looks really unnatural. So I would highly recommend practicing that softening skill. And as you'll see down the wing as well, I will soften the feathers into the pinker feathers. And now we're going to create a darker, vibrant black, I suppose. So what my go-to colours are ultramarine and burnt sienna, and you can play around with the concentrations of the pigments to get the certain shade you want. Some people like to just go straight in with three primary colours. That's another great way to make a vibrant black. But I like to use French ultramarine and burnt sienna. And then I'm just applying that colour here to the side of the wings. I will also blend that in with the softening technique, and on the tail as well, I'm adding in that darker colour. So you can see how much darker this is. So I've really played around with the concentration of ultramarine and burnt sienna, and you can actually create such a nice black. If you do struggle though, like sometimes I also like to add in some black that's in the palette I have. It might be Mars black. There's lots of different types of blacks actually. Let me just have a quick look. In my set, I actually have ivory black. Um, I think in a lot of watercolor sets you get ivory black. So yeah, I did use a tad of that just to darken certain areas, but I would try to avoid it if you can. Now on the head, I am using a really small brush here. It's a 3/0 brush. Sorry, I bought it from Amazon. You can get quite a few of them relatively cheap, and I'm just adding in those finer details as well. The thing with watercolor is that when it dries, it appears lighter. So I some people go in with more paint than usual because they know when it dries, it will appear lighter. But for me personally, I just do layers. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if I generally just think it looks better, but I tend to just add layers. So I add the layer, let it dry, and then obviously it's too light, so I add another layer. So for the eye, I'm using the vibrant dark I made, and I might use a touch of ivory black just to darken certain areas. And I'm using a wet and dry approach, and I'm just applying that paint to the eye, making sure to leave highlights. So I've purposely left highlights, and also around the eye, I'm adding in some little lines. Again, softening the edges, so important to soften those edges. Clean your brush with some fresh water, and then just gently soften the edges like that. So there's lots of ways you can leave highlights. For speed, sometimes I just leave areas of white paper, like I have done with the eye there, and I work around it. If you make mistakes or you prefer the look of gouache, you can use wet gouache, or some people like to use masking fluid. I've used all three. I don't think I have a preference actually. I think masking fluid is probably more of a hassle because you've got to apply the masking fluid, let it dry, and then once it's dried, you need to peel it off, and then once you've done that, you need to soften the edges. So there's a lot more steps involved when you use masking fluid, and also if you leave the masking fluid on for too long, then it can ruin the paper as well. So if you're starting out, I would just purposely leave white highlighted areas or just use gouache. I tend to use gouache when I've overworked the piece and I haven't left enough white spots. Okay, and that's it, guys. That is the pink robin. I hope you enjoyed this painting. I really, really enjoyed it. So much fun. I can't believe they exist. Absolutely amazing. Have to see one in real life one day. If you've seen one, let me know. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for being here with me today. Really, really appreciate it. And I shall see you in the next video. Bye, guys.